The idea that falsehood is edifying is one of the besetting sins of those who draw up educational schemes. Those who set the goals and schemes of educational systems should not convey falsehood as a moral or intellectual instruction. If it does, it is a great sin. I should not myself consider that a man could be a good teacher unless he had make a firm resolve never in the course of his teaching to conceal truth, because it is what is called unedifying. A teacher should know what is right and what is wrong, and he should not conceal the truth from the students. He has to give that both sides of the same thing. Then only he can become a good teacher. The kind of virtue that can be produced by guarded ignorance is frail and fails at the first touch of reality. The teacher should not give a fake representation of the world. Everything should be open in front of the student. Otherwise, when they face a reality, they will be in a dilemma, they will be in a confusion. There are in this world many men who deserve admiration. Men who have shown the right path to the young people. And it is good that the young should be taught to see the ways in which these men are admirable. The young should do a survey that how these men become so much inspiration to others. But it is not good to teach them to admire rogues by concealing their roguery. There is a tendency in film that we people will love the way an anti-hero presents his life. So, in that case, we will admire that rogue. But in the real world, it is a great sin to conceal the roguery and admire that rogue. It is not good. It is thought that the knowledge of things as they are will lead to cynicism, and so it may do if the knowledge comes suddenly with a shock of surprise and horror. It is important that the knowledge should be pure and real. Otherwise, when they get that first hand knowledge from the society, the result will be a shock of surprise and horror. But if it comes gradually, duly intermixed with the knowledge of what is good, and in the course of a scientific study inspired by the wish to get at the truth, it will have no such effect. So, from the school or from the educational institutions itself, if the teacher gave an idea about every sides of the same thing, it will be a blessing to the student. There will be no surprise or horror. He'll be able to manage or deal with it in his practical life. So, in any case, to tell lies to the young who have no means of checking what they are told is morally indefensible. If you teach a student in a school, they will not go and check whether this teacher had said right or wrong. No. They will just swallow whatever is said by the teacher. So, telling lies to the young is wrong. The thing above all that a teacher should endeavor to produce in his pupils, if democracy is to survive, is a kind of tolerance that springs from an endeavor to understand those who are different from ourselves. So that teachers should realize the individual difference in the classroom. There works the democracy. Everyone will not imbibe or absorb things in the same way. Each pupil are different. It is perhaps a natural human impulse to view with horror and disgust all manners and customs different from those to which we are used. We are used to certain kind of customs or beliefs according to our surroundings, according to whatever our family has followed. So when we see something different from that, there will be some kind of a horror or maybe disgust. It's natural. Ants and savages put strangers to death, and those who have never traveled either physically or mentally find it difficult to tolerate the cure ways and outlandish beliefs of other nations and other times, other sects, and other political parties. We will always show an indifference to anything which is not known to us, something different from us. It will seem strange and cure, even if it is a belief or a culture of other people or any propagandas of other political parties, etc. So, this kind of ignorant intolerance is an antithesis of a civilized outlook and is one of the gravest dangers to which our overcrowded world is exposed. So, to have a civilized outlook is very important. For that, we have to tolerate the indifferences, the changes. We have to understand why it is like that or why it is different from mine. So, that free thinking should be developed in students, and that can be only developed by a teacher. The educational system ought to be designed to correct it, but much too little is done in this direction at present. Our educational system is not related to our real life. It is only for the sake of exam, for the sake of job, for the sake of higher studies. So, in every country, nationalistic feeling is encouraged, and school children are taught what they are only too ready to believe, that the inhabitants of other countries are morally and intellectually inferior to those of the country in which the school children happen to reside. So, it is important that every children should get education for their moral and intellectual development. Collective hysteria, the most mad and cruel of all human emotions, is encouraged instead of being discouraged, and the young are encouraged to believe what they hear frequently said rather than what there is some rational ground for believing. When something is told to us repeatedly, which make us believe in that thing, we'll not go for a second thought. We will realize, or we will assure that it is true. Whatever we have heard from the majority is true. We will believe that it is right. We will not go for a rational thinking. So that is a problem. In every case, it may not be the same. In all this, the teachers are not to blame. They are not free to teach us they would wish. They are there for a certain period of time. It is they who know most intimately the needs of the young. It is they who, through daily contact, have come to care for them. But it is not they who decide what shall be taught or what the methods of instruction are to be. They are there as a guide, as a mentor. What should be taught, what are the strategies to be taken, are decided by higher educational authorities. So, teacher there becomes a mediator between that authorities and students. There ought to be a great deal more freedom than there is for the scholastic profession. So, teacher is not just for the purpose of teaching. They have some more duties to perform. It ought to have more opportunities for self determination, more independence from the interference of bureaucrats and bigots. It is a teacher who mold up the students to become the future citizens of the society. So no one would consent in our day to subject the medical men to the control of non-medical authorities, as to how they should treat their patients, except, of course, where they depart criminally from the purpose of medicine, which is to cure the patient. The medical men, when they learn, they are only dealing with the theoretical and practical session of what they learn. They are not allowed to go to the patients to learn how to behave or how to mingle with them, how to deal with them, except the curing process. But in the case of a teacher, it is different. The teacher is a kind of a medical man whose purpose is to cure the patient of childishness. But he is not allowed to decide for himself on the basis of experience what methods are most suitable to this end. In this case, the teacher don't know the methods and strategies. I mean, the teachers will not be able to decide on her own what subjects should be taught, what methods or strategies should be adopted. But the teacher is getting a chance to mingle with the students, to know the problems of students. The students will be like patients before them, and the teacher becomes a medical man. And the teacher, then only she will be able to try out the methods and strategies when the students are present in front of her. A few great historic universities, by weight of their prestige, have secured virtual self-determination, but the immense majority of educational institutions are hampered and controlled by men who do not understand the work with which they are interfering. There are certain universities who will not allow, universities and also institutions who will not allow the teachers to take their own decisions. They will intrude and control these teachers, that they have to follow the rules and methods, whatever is prescribed by these institutions and universities, because it is their prestige matter. They don't want a fall graph from the performance of the teachers and also students. Or they have to maintain that graph the same forever by following those rules. So there will be no experimentation. If experimentation comes, there will be downfalls, there will be ups and downs. So that will be a risk factor to those universities or institutions. So the only way to prevent totalitarianism in our highly organized world is to secure a certain degree of independence for bodies performing useful public work. And among such bodies, teachers deserve a foremost place. Here, teacher becomes a public worker. So that much independence should be given to a teacher because she is doing a great job. He or she, whoever, everyone who can bring changes to the behavior of students can become a teacher. So there should be no hampering or a kind of totalitarian effect by others from the side of institutions or universities on the teachers. The teacher, like the artist, the philosopher, and the man of letters, can only perform his work adequately if he feels himself to be an individual directed by an inner creative impulse, not dominated and fettered by an outside authority. Different teachers have different talents. They have different creative impulse. So every teachers are, if they are dominated by the same outside authority, there will be no difference in teaching. The teacher becomes an artist, a philosopher, a man of letters, a public worker, a mentor, a guide. So that freedom, the artist gets a freedom of how he or she should paint. A philosopher gets a freedom to think freely. A man of letters gets a freedom to choose what words he should use for his writing, for his intellectual written piece. Like that, a teacher should also get freedom of how to teach and what to teach. So it is very difficult in this modern world to find a place for the individual. He can subsist at the top as a dictator in a totalitarian state or a plutocratic magnate in a country of large industrial enterprises, but in the realm of the mind, it is becoming more and more difficult to preserve independence of the great organized forces that control the livelihoods of men and women. It's a very pity thing that our educational system is also becoming like a business market. It is also under the control of industrial enterprises. So it is very difficult to get back those traditional values of education at this point. So if the world is not to lose the benefit to be derived from its best minds, it will have to find some method of allowing them scope and liberty in spite of organization. There should be some other way for the teachers to bring out their talents and their best thoughts in front of the students. If they cannot do it because of the hampering rule of the organization. So, this involves a deliberate resistance on the part of those who have power and a conscious realization that there are men to whom free scope must be afforded. So, a chance or a scope is inevitable. Renaissance pops could feel in this way towards Renaissance artists, but the powerful men of our day seem to have more difficulty in feeling respect for exceptional genius. Renaissance time was a revival of learning. New things were experimented, but this time it is very difficult because of the intrudence of these powerful men, of these corporates. They will not let an exceptional genius to find his or her way. The turbulence of our times is inimical to the fine flower of culture. The man in the street is full of fear and therefore unwilling to tolerate freedoms for which he sees no need. He is in the street, so what's the need of freedom? Perhaps we must wait for quieter times before the claims of civilization can again override the claims of party spirit. So there's more to learn, more to think, more to revive. Meanwhile, it is important that some at least should continue to realize the limitations of what can be done by the organization. That faults, where are these loopholes? Limitations should be found out. Every system should allow loopholes and exceptions, for it does not, it will in the end crush all that is best in man. When the system works for profit, for their favor, it will end up in the destruction of the major emotions or intellectual needs of man. And it will end up in the destruction of the value of human civilization itself. So there ends our essay, The Functions of a Teacher. It was published in Harper's Magazine, June 1940. Subsequently reprinted in Unpopular Essays in 1950. So this class 39 was a long session. That's why I have divided my classes into 5 parts and uploaded in my channel. But this session is a little more longer than I expected because I had to complete the essay with this part itself. So please bear with me. Continue your learning. Stay tuned with the channel. Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more notifications. Next, moving on to Module 7, Basic Grammar. Today we will end up the class session related to tense, and the last tense is a future tense. A verb that denotes an action which will commence in the future time is said to be in the future tense. First one, simple future tense. A verb in the simple future tense denotes an action which will commence in the future. For that, we will use shall and I. He will come. We shall arrive at 5 p.m. Future continuous tense. The future continuous tense is used to express an action as going on at some time in the future. For that, we will use shall be or will be with the ing form of the verb. I shall be sleeping when you come. My brother will be writing to you again. Next, future perfect tense. A verb in the future perfect tense denotes an action which will be completed at a point of time in the future. For that, we will use will have, shall have with the past participle form of the verb. I shall have completed 20 years of service next March. He will have forgotten this by tomorrow. Next is future perfect continuous tense. A verb in the future perfect continuous tense denotes an action which will commence before the future time and will be continuing in the future time also. This tense is not much used, but still, for example, by next year I shall have been writing my 15th book. So that's all about tense. Just try to make sentences according to the rules, it will be easy. Next class, we will deal with another topic from the basic grammar module itself. Thank you.